Wednesday, January the 8th. This is Keystone Heights. This is microeconomics. This is our first class. We've been talking about how you're going to get yourself into this program by going on to Canvas on the Learning Management System. You're going to go to the Modules tab. You're going to open up the Admin Docs module, and it's going to have your syllabus, your course schedule, and a video readings and study question list. This is all the videos for the class with all of their URLs that you can cut and paste into your browser, and you can watch the videos. The videos take the place of the textbook. There is another module called Materials for Exam 1 that has several appendices, A through F in it. That's the materials you're going to use to practice working questions to get ready for the exam. Appendix A has 75 multiple choice questions. There are answers to all of these questions. Some of them are even explained. But what happens is, you've got to go home and do this. And you've got to be able to come to class next time, by Monday, having done hopefully at least 50 of these questions. And walk into this classroom and say, Mr. Strickland, on number 34, I don't think you've got a right answer there. And we'll talk about it. Or, I've been working on number 19 and it might as well be written in Chinese because I just don't understand it. But if you haven't done the work to come in and ask me those kind of questions, you're headed down the wrong trail. That first exam will blow you away. You understand what I'm saying then? Got a lot to do. I want you organized into study groups, 3, 4, 5 people each. One person from the study group send me an email, tell me who all's in your group, because I want you to be able to talk with one another, to sit down and study together, to ask questions, to cry together. What do you want to do, okay? That's the nature of the course. What are your questions at this point? Anybody? No? Okay. We went through the aha effect. There is a video on the aha effect. Sit down and watch it again if you're really bored. There is another video called Stupid Questions. There are no stupid questions when we're going over material in class. If you don't understand something, I don't care if you think it's stupid, ask the question. Because if you don't quite understand it, there's 4, 5, 6 others that don't either. But there is such a thing as stupid questions. You know what a stupid question is? Mr. Strickland, is that going to be on the exam? That's a stupid damn question. Okay? You think I'm up here talking about this because it's not going to be on the exam? I'm not that much in love with myself. Okay? There's another stupid question. Mr. Strickland, I can't make class next Monday. Are you going to do anything important? Oh, hell no. We never do anything important. Don't worry about it. Just miss all the class you want. Those are stupid questions. Be careful of those. Not just in this class, but in life. Right? All right. That's where we're going. We're going to start off every class with the same question. And the question is, what would you like to talk about? Because we're going to talk about more than just microeconomics. We're going to talk about a few other things that maybe I can provoke your interest in. One of the things we're going to talk about is for a paper that you're going to write for me. This is called the Choices paper. Choices. That probably doesn't even show up on the video. This is a 5 to 8 page paper, double-spaced, by you, about you. If you go to the VRSQ, you'll see some videos for the Choices paper, and when you look at video number 5, there's 5 short videos. You'll see my story about a guy named John Spence. And hopefully there's another video I've got posted on there. It's a TEDx speech. It's a speech by people who are, excelling in their fields. I'd like you to hear what John has to say. All of this relates to this Choices paper. The Choices paper is about what's important to you. What's the most important thing in your world? I'm going to ask you to pick out 3 or 4 or 5 things that are most important thing to you. Your most important, what I call values. And I'm not talking moral values, I'm talking about things that are important. One of the most important things in the world to me, I call it love, but it's the people that are close to me and a little close to me and a little bit further out, like ripples in a pond. Those people in my life, most important thing going for me. My second important value, laughter. I value laughter. I value being around people who are fun to be with, optimistic, encouraging. Okay, that's really important. So if you're really a down the mouth, always negative, bitching, moaning, complaining, I'm going to drop kick your butt out the door. So if I know my values, I know where my tolerances are. There's some things I will not tolerate in my life. The other third value, personally, just to share with you, my other third value I call serenity. You know what serenity means? Anybody? Take a guess. To be serene. Was it? Huh?
At peace.
At peace. Serenity. Serenity to me means sitting on my back porch in Gainesville. I've got 2 acres back there, wooded, and watching the deer coming through the trees, watching the squirrels trying to get to my bird feeder, sitting in my hot tub with a martini, talking to my wife. That's serenity. It also means, though, I've got enough money to pay my bills. I'm not rich, but I got my bills taken care of. I got my insurance in case things happen. I got life pretty much under control, and I'm serene. Now, you mess with my serenity, we'll have a problem. Okay? But that's one of my most important things, so don't mess with it. I want to know about you. And you'll see when you read the syllabus, it's got a little discussion. The videos have a discussion. I want you to identify the 3 or 4 or 5 most important things to you. Once you've identified them, that's the first part of this choices paper. What are your values? Second thing is, I want you to ask yourself, where do you want to be in about 5 years? And I pick 5 years because for me that means you finish college and you're a year out in the world, right? Where do you want to be? I want you to paint me a really clear, vivid picture. Clip out pictures and put them in the document if you want. Where do you want to live? What kind of job do you have? How much money do you make? How do you spend your free time? What kind of car are you driving? What kind of furniture you got in your place? What kind of relationship are you in? Do you have any pets? How do you spend your free time? I want you to describe how life would be for you in 5 years if you could make it exactly what you want it to be. Because if you don't have any idea where you want to go, how in the hell are you going to get there? If you don't have some vision of where you want to go, life's just going to slap you around, and all you're going to do is react to everything that happens. And then you're going to spend your evenings moaning and drinking and complaining. And you're going to spend your days drinking and complaining. And in 5 years, you won't be a hell of a lot different than you are right now. Don't let that happen. College is critical. Critical in a couple of ways. You develop some habits and some interests that set the platform for you. And it's in the first 5 years out of college. You either set the platform up and get yourself organized and focused and disciplined and make life happen, or you get out of college with no direction, no focus, no nothing, and 10 years after that you still don't know where you're going. So this paper is going to make you think about yourself. Third part of the paper, all this is in the videos. I want you to pick out the goals, maybe 5 to 8 of them, that you need to achieve to make that future become real. Maybe one of your goals, I had a girl one time, she said, one of my goals when 5 years from today, I want to be debt-free. I thought that was a pretty good goal. And in fact, she stayed in touch with me, she made it. Some people say, well, one of my goals is I want to jump out of an airplane. Well, go ahead. What kind of goals might you have? Well, I love real estate. I want to have my real estate license in 5 years. That's a good one. Or a securities dealer's license. What do you want, what particular things have you got to accomplish? One of my goals, I want to finish college with a 3.9 GPA. Okay, that's cool. Higher GPA means you can keep going in education even further if you want to. You finish college with a 2.0 GPA, don't look to go to graduate school. See what I'm saying? I want you to pick out some goals. Fourth part of the paper is I want you to make me a plan for one of those goals, any one of them. The plan that most students use is their academic plan. They draw up a schedule and they say, here we are, spring, summer, fall. This will be for 14 and 15. And in this term, I'm going to take these courses. In this term, I'm going to take these courses. All the way down, map out your entire academic plan of the courses you've got to take, term by term. And know that today. How do you find that information out? First, you decide on what you want to major in. And some of you are going to look at me, well, I don't know. Well, I don't give a damn. Pick one. Pick one. You change it if you want to. You throw the whole paper away after you're done. Pick one and go find out what courses you would have to take in the catalog. Look in the catalog. And this means at Santa Fe. And then if you're not going to do your bachelor's here with us, then if you're going to the University of Florida, go to their catalog and see what courses you got to take. Plan out your future. That's a kind of a plan that's acceptable. Okay? The fifth part of the paper, the John Spence thing, is called extracurricular activities. When you read about John, and we may just tell his story today, you'll see that there's a lot you can be doing outside of the classroom that would make a hell of a lot of difference in whether or not you make that vision for your future come true or not. What are you going to be doing outside the classroom to craft your life? Let me tell you about John just for a minute. It's a lot of years ago. John was a student in my class up on Northwest Campus. The micro class, the first one I had with him. We did all the work and got ready for the first exam. And it was a Friday class, the exam was on Monday. And I finished in class up and I said, has anybody else got anything to say? And he raised his hand. I didn't know who he was, I'd just been sitting there through the term. He says, may I make an announcement? I said, yeah, go ahead. And he walks up to the board and he writes on the board, he says, my name's John Spence. This is my phone number. Here's a map to where I live. He said, at 6 o'clock tonight in my apartment, I'm going to have a study group and we're going to start studying for this exam on Monday. I'll bring some beer and some chips. You want some Coca-Colas, bring them, and you're all invited. He sat down. You ever seen anybody do that? I thought that was the damnedest way to pick up women I had ever seen. This guy's a master. I didn't worry about it. Monday came for the exam, and here comes John and 5 or 6 others, and they're just laughing and talking and good friends and having the best time. They walked in, sat down, took that exam, and that group, 5 or 6 of them, they set the curve. They maxed out the test. He did it for the second exam, did it for the third exam. Next thing I know, he shows up in my macro class. We're getting ready for the first exam. Anybody got anything to say? Walks up to the board and does the whole routine again. He did that for 3 different classes he took with me. He set the curve in every class. He's a phenomenal student. Well, about halfway through that first class, I got to wonder, and I said, John, let me talk to you. What the hell is your story? He says, well, I'm not real proud of it. He says, I'm from Miami. I'm from a very wealthy family. My father is one of the preeminent product liability attorneys in the United States. There is a wing in the law school at the University of Miami named after my father. And when I finished high school, and I went to a very good prep school, I went to the University of Miami, and I made a couple of poor choices. He says, I hung around with the 4 or 5 fellas, and we had 2 basic rules on going to college. If the sun is shining, let's go fishing. And if the sun ain't shining, let's go drinking. He says, at the end of the first 2 terms of my college career, my grade point average was a 1.9. And I had the highest GPA in my entire group. The University of Miami asked me to please leave. He says, I was kicked out of the University of Miami. He says, I came up here to Gainesville to go to the University of Florida. When I showed them my transcripts, they laughed at me. They said, we don't take your kind here. He says, I literally sat out on 13th Street, right in front of Tigard Hall, and cried because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And then somebody said I ought to go down the road to Santa Fe Community College back then because they would probably let me in. They'll let in just about anybody. He says, I came here to Santa Fe. I took a few courses. I got my head together. I decided where I wanted to go and how I was going to do it. He says, these study groups that I start are part of the way I do college. I make straight A's. I have a lot of friends. And every time when we study all throughout the term, we study for 3 or 4 hours, and then we go out and have a few beers together. He says, I'm doing great, I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm making the future I want. I thought, wow, that's pretty sharp. He finished at Santa Fe, went over to the University of Florida, majored in public relations, and we stayed in touch. He got to be my fishing buddy. Good guy. And I asked him about his junior year. I said, so John, what are you going to do with a public relations major? Come on. He says, well, my mom has a big charter fishing boat in Miami, and I worked on that for years. And the one thing in the world I love to do more than anything else is fish. I want to get me a job in public relations where I go to fishing tournaments. I fish off great big boats, catching sailfish and marlin, rubbing elbows with rich people, having a good time. And when we come in off of fishing, we're going to sit around the marina in the club and have a little rum drink served by a pretty girl. That's what I want. And I wondered what he was smoking. Because that's just not realistic, you know. But we stayed in touch, and I ran into him only a few months later. He's about 6 months, 8 months from graduating. I said, John, how's it going? How's your plan to be in the fishing tournament business going? He says, great. He said, did you know that Florida is a peninsula? I thought, boy, they give you a quality education over there at University of Florida, don't they? They give you the facts. He said, no, you're missing it. He said, every weekend there's a fishing tournament or 12 all along the coast of Florida. And he says, for the last 6 weeks, I have picked out a tournament, driven over there on Friday afternoon when everybody's coming in, drive down to the marina where they're offloading their boats, got out and asked around for the tournament director, introduced myself and said, I'm John Spence, I'm here to volunteer. I'll chip ice, I'll work on boats, I'll cut bait, I'll fix reels, I'll fix motors. He says, I just love fishing and I'm here to help. And you know what happens on Saturday morning? Every Saturday morning, at least one of the crews of the tournament fishermen asks me, John, would you like to ride with us for today? You can't fish, it's against rules, but you could run the boat for us. And he says, I know a little bit about fishing and running a boat. He says, I spend all day out there on the water with these 3 or 4 fishermen. And we come back in Saturday night and we have a few rum drinks and get to be friends. And on Sunday morning, I wind up on another boat. And at the end of the weekend, what's happened? I've met 6 or 8 people who go to tournaments all the time. What kind of people are those?
Rich. Probably rich people.
Rich! You got to be rich to afford the tournament fee. You got to have a boat, on and on and on. After doing that for 6 weeks, John's got a list of contacts, a network of people who are very active in this field. And instead of going down to whoever prints his resumes and sending out 3,000 resumes for a job, he wrote a half a dozen personal letters to some of these people he had met who he knew were well connected in the fishing and marine industry. And he says, hi, this is John. You know me. You know my skills. You know my social skills, my speaking ability. You know my work ethic. I'm looking for a job in the marine industry. I'm the #3 PR graduate in America this year. If you know anybody that could use me in the marine industry, would you please give them my attached resume? In a matter of about 4 weeks later, the phone rang and the guy on the other side said, is this John Spence? And he said, yes, it is. And the fellow said, well, my name is Winthrop Rockefeller. I'm the former governor of Arkansas. Maybe you know the name. He says, we have a Rockefeller Foundation down in Miami called the Billfish Foundation. They raise money to be used for research into sport fishing. We need a public relations director. I'm holding your resume and I hear good things about you. Would you like to interview for the job? He spent another couple of weeks researching the business, went down there with a proposal on what he would do if he were the public relations director, and hired right there. He worked for 2 years as the public relations director, and at that time the chief executive officer quit or was fired, and they promoted John above everybody else into the CEO position. And he ran a Rockefeller Foundation for 3 years, starting at the age of about 24. Now, John since then has gone on beyond the Billfish Foundation. He's one of the most well-known, respected speakers, trainers in corporate America in the country. He lives in Gainesville. He's still one of my dear friends. Look at what John did while he was in college, when he was outside the classroom. Look at how he used his time to craft the path to the future he wanted. If you will think in those terms, along with where do you want to be, can you not devise some things, productive things, to be doing? That's what this Choices paper is all about. It's a very private paper. I don't share it with anybody. I don't grade it. You don't get a grade on your dreams. I just give you a check mark that you turned it in and did a good job on it. If you don't turn the paper in and you don't get a check mark, you can't pass this class. Okay? 1 paper, 3 exams. Hey, diddle diddle, here we go. All right? All right. am videoing the class today because I was told there were a few people that wouldn't be able to make it. We have 27 people registered in the course, and I only see 7, 13, 19, one left is 20, so we got a few missing. I will not normally video the class, but if you use the videos on the VRSQ, you'll have all the material you need. Any comments, any questions so far? Okay. All right. You have the Slavin textbook. That's a good reference. But
One I was given.
oh, as long as you didn't pay for it.
So,
Okay, good enough.
dual enrollment.
Good deal. You might rent out access to it to some of the other people. What are we going to do? Microeconomics. Wow, where do we start? What's economics about? Anybody ever taken any economics before? No? What's your guesstimate? What do you think economics is about? Economics is about the most fundamental choices in life. What are you going to do with what you got? That's economics. What are you going to do with what you got? Because what you do with what you got is going to determine on where you're going to be down the road. In economics, they use a little different language. They say economics is the study of the allocation of scarce resources among competing uses. That sounds a little pointy-headed to me. I like better what you're going to do with what you got. When we study microeconomics, we ask that question of you and I, the individual. What are you going to do? And we ask it about businesses or organizations, partnerships, marriages. What are y'all going to do with what you got? That's what it's all about. Now for you and me, what are we after? What's our goal in life? Can you summarize that in a word or a sentence? What do you want out of life?
To have fun.
I'm sorry?
To have fun.
Fun. Fun, pleasure,
Joy.
joy. My word is happiness. I'm here to be happy. I'm here to be happy, hopefully at no one else's expense, but in fact to share it and bring some other people with it. I'm here to have a good time, the best way I can. Now, one of the ways I have a good time is seeing other folks do well, and if I can help that, that makes me happy. Okay? I'm here, now we have a different word for that in economics, I'm here to maximize my utility. We'll study that here later. Utility means enjoyment, happiness, satisfaction. I'm a utility maximizer, so are you, by the way. We may maximize that utility or happiness in different ways. But if you and I are here to maximize our utility or our enjoyment, what are businesses here for? What are they here to maximize?
Profits.
Profits. At least in the capitalistic competitive field where businesses compete, they're there to maximize profits. What about a church? That's an organization. What are they there to maximize?
Members.
Members and spiritual well-being, and hopefully translating that into material well-being as well, happiness. Okay? What is a nonprofit here for?
Charity.
To help people with certain needs in certain categories. We are all maximizing something. In this case and in this course, when we talk about businesses, we're going to talk about profit maximizers. But recognize that not every business is a profit maximizer. Would you start your own business and not try to maximize profits? Anybody? I would. I'd start my own business for one reason, to maximize my happiness. And it might be that I could make more money by paying my people less, but if they're doing good, I feel better, so I'll take less money because I'll be happier. If you're a privately owned business, you don't have to maximize your profits. Now, you do have to make enough money to live on. Incidentally, background, my autobiographical sketches on Canvas, you can read about me a little bit. I had a taxidermy business over in Stark for 9 years, a long time ago, a place called PK Whiskers. So you might have folks who have one of their mounts. Okay? I enjoy a little bit of hunting and a lot of fishing and all the lying that goes with it. I wish I could say we maximized our profit over there, but in taxidermy, profits are hard to get. And the work is drudgery. So my partner went into business training dogs instead. And she's moved up to South Carolina where she trains some of the best Boykin Spaniels in the world. And makes a whole lot more money than working taxidermy. What y'all laughing about? You gotta tell me now.
PK Whiskers.
Yeah? You never heard of that?
No.
Okay. We were sitting right on 301 on the north end of town. There's a big old two-story building still there where we started. And we'd have people pull in off 301, come in. Half of them wanted a haircut, and the other half wanted a drink. They thought we were a bar. Got to meet a lot of people that way. My partner was a Leo, or sign, you know, the lion. So she was big on lions, whatever. She was a taxidermist. I learned how to use an airbrush and paint the fish. That's pretty much what I did. Hired help. All right. The first thing we're going to do, and it's the biggest part of the test, is supply and demand. So I'm going to lay out the basics today, but I'm only going to give you an overview. Shouldn't take us more than 15 minutes. I'll give you the overview, but you've got to spend the time between here and Monday watching those videos and getting deep into it, so that Monday when you come to class, you've done hopefully at least the first 50 questions on Appendix A. Now what will happen Monday is you will come to class and I will ask you if there are any you want to go over. And if so, we'll do it. But if y'all sit there and dummy up on me and don't say anything, I'm going to start calling you by name. All right, what's your name? Good, get up, go to the board and show us how to work problem number 4. So there will be some accountability. So don't come to class unprepared. Okay? Overview. Demand. And we may get there, we may not, the supply side. Demand is you and me, buyers. And demand starts out by saying, let's say for example, you've got one of those little carts you push around outside a hot dog stand, and you're working in Gainesville, set up over by the university. And you did a little experiment for the first 6 months you were open. For the first 3 months, you charged $7 for a hot dog. This is a good hot dog, right? It's full size, good bun, onions, mustard, 3 types of mustard, 3 types of relish. Really nice deal. When you charged $7, you found that you sold 110 hot dogs every week. That gives you this point right here. The next 3 months, you raised your price to $9. And over those 3 months, you found that you sold 71 hot dogs a week. So everybody knows where those 2 points on the graph comes from, right? If you connect those, even sort of loosely, you've got what we call a demand curve. A demand curve says, and be careful how you read them, it says, if the price is this, then the quantity, the number you sell, is that. If the price is $8, then it looks like I would sell, about 91 a week. That's all the demand curve is telling you. You okay with that? That's not rocket science. What do you suppose happens with your little hot dog stand on a Saturday when they have a home game for the Gators football game? And you're charging $9 for hot dogs. You think you're going to sell 71 of them? How many are you going to sell?
304 more.
314, just exactly. 314 at $9, that gives you a point way out here. You see that? And if you decided instead to sell them for $7, would you sell 110? How many do you reckon you'd sell? I think 502. How's that? Which gives you a point down here. Which means what? That demand curve that you usually are looking at for your business has moved. D prime. We call that an increase in the demand for your hot dogs. The demand curve has shifted. If it shifts to the right, it's an increase. If it shifts to the left and here, it's a decrease. The first thing you've got to learn, it's in those PowerPoints, is the 5 forces that will move the demand curve, that will shift the demand curve. What made the demand for hot dogs increase?
Okay.
The game. Well, that's going to fit in here. What makes a demand curve move? Number one, the number of buyers. And when you had the game, you had the number of buyers went up by quite a bit, a lot more people. What else will make a demand curve move? Buyers' expectations. I mean, if we started a newspaper campaign and got somebody to write a story on us and said, eat hot dogs, look handsome, what would happen? We'd have a bunch of damn fools out there buying hot dogs, no problem. They were expected to look better. Okay? Third one, closely related to all this, tastes and preferences. If we started a nice little photo campaign and said, all the cool guys are eating hot dogs, everybody who wants to look cool is going to be out there eating hot dogs. Okay, big deal. These next two, the last two, are a little more complicated. What else makes people change their demand for hot dogs? One is incomes. When I use incomes, I usually use the letter Y to mean income. So let me ask you, if people started earning more money in Gainesville, would you start selling more hot dogs? You think so? If you had more money, would you eat more hot dogs? No? So if you had more money, you'd eat fewer hot dogs? Why?
So I would get more expensive food.
You damn right. Steak sounds a whole lot better than hot dogs to me. So there's two kinds of people out there, aren't there? There's people who really love hot dogs. Watch your careful. And we say if their income goes up, their demand for hot dogs will also increase. And that's true for most goods. That's the way most people behave. Most things, when people earn more money, they buy more of just about everything. So we call those normal goods. Normal. But you just described to me a case where if your income went up, your demand for some things would decrease. Can you give me another example other than hot dogs of where if you had more money, there's something you'd buy less of? Ramen noodles. And right next to that, Spam. How many of y'all ever eaten Spam out of the can? Just a few. We like to buy some of that and just share it around. You know? What is Spam?
Mush.
That's a good question.
Mystery meat. I don't think they put it on the can anymore, but it used to. You know, the first ingredient on the ingredients of a can is the one there's the most of, and it used to read pork byproduct. And what that meant was once you finished slaughtering the hog and taking the good cuts off, there's still some usable meat. So you went and shaved all that off, blended it all together with some spices, and shaped it into a loaf. And you put it into a
Isn't that kind
can.
of what a hot dog is too?
That's just what a hot dog is. Absolutely. All these people turning their nose up at Spam, you'll watch them. They'll be eating damn hot dogs. Huh? When you open a can of Spam, it doesn't fit exactly in the can, so they fill the rest of the can up with gelatin to preserve it. Clear gelatin. And so when you open the can of Spam and drop it out on a plate, it just kind of jiggles. And then we see just how brave you are.
Or how hungry you are.
Because we leave it in the refrigerator for a couple of days to make sure it's good and cold. And then we drop it out on the plate and let it jiggle. And then we cut you a nice thick slice of it and see if you can eat it. And then when you go to college, they add to that. They give you a slice of cold Spam with plenty of gelatin all over it. Once you eat that, you toss a shot of tequila. And you take on the next guy and see who can stand there the longest. Now there's a term for that in economics. It's called stupid. Okay. Goods that when you have more money, you buy less of them. Any other ones? Think of another one. If you had more money, you'd buy less of it.
What about like generic stuff?
Perfect. That's the answer I was looking for.
I was going to say cheap shampoo.
Generic goods. Because when we have more money, we tend to buy brand name goods. Okay? Good. These are called inferior goods. And it's not because their quality is any worse. It's just based on the way people behave. So when you read about such and such a market and incomes are going up or incomes are going down, first thing you got to ask is, whoa, are we talking about a normal good or an inferior good? It's going to be very important to know that. Because if you don't know that and you make the wrong choice, you got exactly the wrong answer. Okay? And then the fifth one. What makes a demand curve move? The price of related goods. We've got two cases here. Okay? We have something called, let's put it this way. If the price of Coca-Cola went up, what would happen to the demand for Pepsi-Cola?
It would go up.
Think through it. If Coca-Cola prices go up, what happens to the demand for Pepsi?
It goes up.
I see several of you saying that the demand for Pepsi will increase. Is that right? Pepsi prices get expensive. More people are going to go, I'm sorry, if Coke prices get expensive, are more people going to go buy Pepsi?
Yeah.
I am. I can mix my rum with either one of them. I don't care, so why not buy the cheap one, right? Sure. So when we see the demand, the price of one product goes up, the demand for the other product goes up, we know that these are called substitutes. You can think of them as competitors. Okay? That's pretty easy to spot. The other case, though, is what happens to if the price of rum goes up? What then happens to the demand for Pepsi? What do rum and Pepsi have to do with each other? A lot of people drink them together and we call them complements. So if rum gets expensive, we're going to buy less rum. And if we have less rum, we don't need as much Pepsi. So the demand for Pepsi will decrease. And these are called complements. With an E, not an I. What's a complement we spell with an I? C-O-M-P-L-I-M-E-N-T-S.
Like, I like your clothes or your hair.
Yeah, you look very nice today. Good. This ain't that. All right so far? The arrows go together for substitutes. The arrows go opposite for complements. You've got to know this cold before Monday. You've got to be able to pick up questions, read it, and say, oh, which one of these things is at work here? Oh, that means the demand curve is going to move, and it's either going to move to the right, move to the left. You've got to know it. You okay with that? Write those down on a little card and use it while you're working the appendix and refer to it until you learn them, because you won't have that little card on the test. All right? That's demand. Let me point out one more thing. Here's your first demand curve, give or take. And there's your second. Suppose you start right here. $9 for your hot dogs. And here's my question. If the price of hot dogs falls to $7, will the demand for hot dogs increase? This is tricky. Will people buy more hot dogs for $7? Sure, price is cheaper.
Yeah.
Is that an increase in demand? No. It is, in fact, moving from here down to here on the same demand curve. And when you go along the same curve, we call that a change in the quantity demanded. That happens when the price changes. On the other hand, if you have a Gator football game and there's a lot more people in town, when the entire curve moves that way, that's a change in demand. Change in demand versus a change in quantity demanded. You've got to have that absolutely clear in your mind, and it takes a little practice with it. A change in demand means the whole curve moved because of one of these things. I go home and watch these videos for hours at a time. I'm just fascinated by myself. Okay, that's the demand side, how the demand curve moves. The other part of this is the supply curve. And there's a whole other explanation. Just like that, there's 5 things that make the supply curve move. You've got to learn those by Monday. Okay, watch the videos especially, and watch the PowerPoints. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. What does a supply curve show us? Well, it says when the price of something gets expensive, sellers produce more of it to sell. And you get a positive slope to a curve. If gasoline is selling for 50 cents a gallon, producers of gasoline don't want to produce very much gas. But when the price of gasoline goes up to $6 a gallon, oh, they're willing to sell a bunch of it now. So price is doing just the opposite of what it used to do. The higher the price, the more they try to produce. Whereas for you and me, the higher the price, the less we try to consume. What would happen if the price of gasoline right now went from about $4, or what is it, $4.40? No, $3.40. It's around $3.40. What if it went up to about $8 a gallon on Monday?
Stop driving?
No,
You'd
if,
stop
if we knew about it right now,
Oh, you buy
I'd be
gasoline?
going buying everything I could get my hands on.
Yep, which would take you through Wednesday next week.
Not in my little Civic.
If gasoline was $8 a gallon, do you think you'd have any trouble finding some to buy if you had the money? Why not?
Not many people can afford that.
Well, but what's going to be going on at the gas stations?
It's gonna be, people are gonna be lined up.
They're going to have all the gas you want. For $8 a gallon, boy, they'll make sure they got all the gas you want. They may not have any customers, but by golly, they'll have plenty of it available for sale. Okay? So, something has happened in the United States in the last 2 or 3 years. The price of oil, which drives the price of gas, the price of oil crept up and up and up and stayed up over $100 a barrel, which made oil and gas so expensive, people began to look back to the oil fields in the United States that had dried up, and they said, if we spent a little more money, could we find a way to get down there and still get some of that oil that's down there out? Because it's too expensive to get, or it used to be. And they went back to the oil fields and they started this new technology called fracking. You heard about that? They drill a hole down in the ground and they inject it and basically explode it underground. And that breaks all the shale rock loose, and there's a lot of oil in there, and they can pull it out. And so as oil prices went up, we went back to our oil fields that we didn't think we would ever get oil out of again, and it was worth the cost of fracking. And now the United States, in this past few months, past year, is actually producing more oil than we consume. How about that? What made that happen? The high price of oil made people want to produce more of it. So our energy outlook for the future, not only do we have more oil, solar's picking up, wind's picking up, geothermal's picking up. The energy outlook for the United States for the next 15, 20 years is pretty rosy. We may be, in fact, selling oil to overseas, exporting it. Because when the price goes up, sellers try to produce more of it. If we have a supply curve here, there are reasons why it may increase, shift to the right, or it may decrease, shift to the left. And there are 5 forces that drive that, and I want you to review those. One of those, just to illustrate, is the cost of producing something. Let's say these are houses. Let's say we got just the one supply curve. What's that supply curve telling us? It says, well, when houses are $150,000 a piece, sellers build 100 of them a year. And if houses go to $600,000 a piece, well, then they'd be glad to build you 400 of them a year. That's a supply curve. But what would happen to this if the price of lumber quadrupled overnight? What does lumber have to do with houses? It's really tough to build a house without lumber, right? They are what we call a cost of production. That's one of the 5 things that makes a supply curve move. So you're a builder, and used to be, for $150,000, you would produce 100 houses, but now lumber costs you 4 times more than it used to. In order to produce 100 houses, what price do you want now? A lower price or a higher price? Higher price. Got to pay for the lumber. So now, to do 100 houses, you got to get $200,000 a piece. Well, look at that point. Same thing up here. To do 400 houses, you need $700,000 a piece. Whatever. What's happened to your supply curve? What happened to it? I want you to describe it. What happened to that supply curve?
Shift to the left.
It shifted to the left. That's the safest way to say it. Here's where you get screwed up. Did supply go up? Where I'm from, this to this is up. Up is north. But did it go up as an increase? It decreased. So when you talk about supply curves and demand curves, don't shift them up or down. Shift them left or right, or increase or decrease, okay? You with me okay with that? You've got to be careful on what makes the supply curve shift. I'm going to leave that to you. I'm going to jump ahead here and wrap this up. Suppose you had a supply curve and a demand curve. The place where they intersect is called equilibrium. And that's the price, P star, where the amount people want to buy, the quantity demanded, is the same as the quantity people want to sell, quantity supplied. That's Q star. You okay so far? Let's let this be houses, just for fun. And let's let two things happen. The price of lumber goes up, and incomes rise. Which curve does lumber affect?
Supply.
The supply curve. Which way is the supply curve going to move? Left or right?
Left.
Left. Okay. Incomes, which curve does that affect?
Demand.
Demand. Which way is the curve going to move?
Right.
I'm waiting for you to ask me a question.
Is it a not inferior good?
Is it an inferior or a normal good? Homes are normal goods. Okay? So if incomes go up, what happens to the demand curve?
That's right.
It's going to shift to the right. You with me? So what we're going to see is a shift to the left of supply and a shift to the right of demand. Now, be careful. When both those curves move, if you're going to get the answer to this, you've got to draw two graphs. One graph for each curve. Because if you try to draw it all on one graph, you've got nothing but a mess. So we're going to draw two curves over here, two graphs. We're going to start them out in equilibrium. And in one of them, we're going to increase demand. And in the other one, we're going to decrease supply. Everybody reading those with me okay? We're going to go from point A to B. And A to B. Take your time, draw them carefully. Now look at the top graph and tell me what happened to the price of houses in that graph. This is price. This is quantity. What happened to the price? Up here. Here's the old price. Here's the new price. What happened to the price?
Increase.
Did it increase? Yeah, it's a higher number. Don't be afraid. Do you see prices will increase up there? What will happen to the sale of houses? Will it increase or decrease? It'll go from here to here. Isn't that an increase? Okay? I want to make sure you're reading these with me okay. We say, well, then the price will go up and the quantity will also increase. Everybody okay with that? Do the same thing for this graph then. Write it on your own paper. What happens to price and what happens to quantity? All right? What happened to price? Increase? Anybody say decrease? Price goes up. What happened to quantity?
It went down.
It decreased from here over to here. Do you understand these two conclusions so far? Okay? If both of these things happen at the same time, which is what's going on, then we say, wow, what's going to happen here? Well, one thing we know for sure. What's going to happen for sure?
Price is going up.
That price is going up. What do we know about quantity? We don't. Quantity may increase, may decrease, depends on which curve moves the most. So we say quantity is uncertain, or ambiguous, or indeterminate. Okay, so that's the way most of these questions are going to go. You're going to get a lot of information. You're going to have to figure out which curves are moving. If both curves are moving, you're going to have to draw different graphs for each one. Get your conclusion, put them together and compare them and say, what do I know for sure and what do I not know? It's very mechanical. You do it again and again and again. The people who do well on the first test do Appendix A 3 times. They work at it. Hours and hours. Time and time and time again. Repetition. Okay?